Awesome. Well, look, everyone, thanks for joining. We've got some people starting to kind of pile in now. Really looking forward to this conversation in particular, just again, kind of talking through, trends for marketers, right? And what are marketers buying? And you're a marketer, you all also sell to marketers, and sales leaders. So, I think you're the perfect person to kind of couple with on this to have a very productive conversation around, this topic. So I'm definitely excited for it. What's going on, everyone, over on LinkedIn as well, too? So we've got folks on LinkedIn. We've got folks on Zoom. Tyler, they're everywhere. Okay, we've got people everywhere. Do me a favor, everyone, if you don't mind, whether you're on LinkedIn or you're on Zoom, just drop in, company name and role. It's one of my favorite things to see. If we've got more, kind of senior leaders, we can take it one way. If we've got more kind of those of you in the trenches, reaching out to marketers, we can, take it a little bit differently. So make sure if you got the time, drop in where you're, what your role is, what your company is. And yeah, we're going to jump right into it. So today we're going to be talking about the top 5 trends that are changing really what marketers buy. And what we're doing this, and Tyler, we talked about this, it's really to highlight that trends, there's some trends in here that we'll talk about that I think people know are coming, but it's just, where are we at in the hype curve,
Right.
and what are actually marketers telling us, hey, we are actively buying these solutions. And so I think that's really what a lot of people want. Aaron Avant, what's going on, Aaron? Good to meet you. There you go. John McTeague, he's always in the house. John is always there. He's always representing. So cool. So Tyler, do you want to, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Sure.
I'm going to tee this bad boy up for everybody. Let me make sure before I do that though, the one thing I always get yelled at is Jake, change the view to gallery or change the view to whatever I'm supposed to do. So I did it. So there, now we're both in the screen so people can see us both. So, all right, here we go. Let's jump in. So again, and for all of you too, I'll keep my eye posted on the comments and on the chat. So if you all have a question, again, I always tell people, I'm like, just be really selfish. Don't just sit around and, listen. If you have questions, go ahead and toss them out there. So pumped to be doing this with you, Tyler. Actually, I don't know if you know, we actually just got off the phone with 90 of your sellers this morning as well too.
Brilliant.
So yes, I'm very excited for those of you who we haven't made it official yet, but we are doing some really cool partnership work with Vidyard to help to make it more sticky, to get everyone using video because they should. I don't know why you're not continuing to send an email. It looks like 95,000 others. And this isn't just because you're here, Tyler. I would say this behind your back too, that we really believe in, video as a amazing medium, just to kind of put it out there, LinkedIn DM videos. We did a test internally, 18% reply rate.
Right.
Let me say that again, 18% reply rate. Think about what you're averaging right now. 1%, 2%. So Tyler, there's my PSA for Vidyard. So yeah, and again, for those of you who don't know, at Skaled, what we do is, we're a sales consulting and strategy firm. We do a ton of sales tech managed services, and interim leadership for early companies. We also work with really big companies that are trying to modernize what they're doing. So if it is around, building a sales organization or optimizing a sales organization from a process or tech, that's our jam. That's what we love to do. And Tyler, you want to give a quick on Vidyard for those who don't know?
Yeah, super quick. There's basically 2 halves to our business. For marketing teams, we are a video hosting management and analytics platform for all the videos they are publishing out there on their websites and in their channels. We also work with sales teams and sales reps who use our tools to record and send custom video messages to prospects and clients as a more personal, more engaging way to communicate, both for prospecting as well as throughout the rest of the deal cycle. Super excited to be here and be able to talk to both sides of the fence as a marketer and as someone who works a lot in the sales community, and excited about the partnership. Thanks so much, Jake. It's great to be working with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited. We're really excited. So we talked about who we are, what we do, and, we'll get into it. Let's just jump in, right? Enough about us. All right. You're like, what, Jake, this isn't what we came for, just to hear you ramble and for Tyler to to talk about Vidyard, for Jake to talk about Vidyard 8 times.
That's not why I'm here either, buddy. Let's do this.
So let's talk about the 5 trends that, kind of that we're excited about. As a part of this, this is a part of, if you go to scale.com, this is a new section in our website that we just launched. And really the reason we launched this is buyer trends, right? Is that industry trends are usually surveys of executives who say, oh, here's some trends in the industry. Well, the reality is most of you don't care. You care what a persona is interested in. You care what a sales leader, a marketing leader is interested in. And so instead of just doing another, call it another industry trends, which KPMG and McKinsey do a great job of, Scaled, and what we're focused on is being the go-to destination for what buyers are actually interested in. And so that's really where a lot of this, these trends from the conversation with you as well, Tyler, is where we kind of pulled these trends from. So if you're interested, these companies are large companies that, marketers that spend a lot of money on marketing and, have a great POV on where the industry's headed. So the 5 trends, and I'll kind of tee this up, and then we'll dive in, and I'll kind of get your take on the first. So one is consolidation, right? Tyler, do you know how many marketing technology tools exist today? Like, what would you guess? Like, how many marketing tech tools exist?
I mean, it's 10,000 plus if you look at the maps. As you break it down into different markets, B2C, B2B, things like that, it's still over 10,000. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, that's so, and we're seeing the same thing on sales, right? Sales, I think we're over 2,000 technologies. Marketing was just blew up first. The next is intent data. So we'll talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of intent. Interactive content, right? So different ways to create more dynamic experiences, and that kind of parlays perfectly into hybrid events, which is, events for a lot of companies. And Tyler, I'm sure you all know this, we're a big lead gen source. They went away. We got pretty good at Zoom or doing some things. We got okay. And so with things still up in the air, like what does that look like going forward? And then finally, everyone's favorite topic, account-based marketing, right? Who doesn't love a good ABM? Dude, that was nice. That's like I was
going to pull on a little Village People here, but we'll save that to the end.
The new YMCA?
Yeah, we'll save the singing to the end for people who actually stick with us.
I love it. All right, so let's dive in. Let's talk about again, like some of the reasons, like some of the primary drivers here for folks, which is just really that organizations right now, again, and these are the trends that we're seeing. And again, you all can kind of see the ones we're calling out. Tyler, for you as a marketer, what stands out most to you? When you look at these and you think, man, this is one that I'm really seeing in the market, or that you're feeling as a CMO too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been through all of these over my kind of lifespan at Vidyard. I've been here for almost 8 years. And so I've gone through phases of these, and I think everybody's going to be somewhere different depending on where they are. Misalignment, or even just not tight enough alignment, I think is absolutely a huge one for teams right now. And it's just partly because of the dynamics of how people are researching and buying, that sales and marketing just have to be locked and loaded. So that's a huge topic right now for a lot of people. And I think the stale one as well, which I always think about, are we creating the kinds of content experiences that people expect in today's day and age, in a very kind of social first and media first world? So those are the two that pop out to me.
Yeah, I love that. And I think those are probably the two, if I just go back, I think those are probably the two that I think most people are feeling consistently too. Yeah. Maybe the stale one is, maybe this will be an awareness for some people of just, where the market shifted, that, the old play, I call it the HubSpot play. The HubSpot play, which was I create ebooks and I chop them into blog posts, and then I chop those into social media posts. That play, my friends, is 10 years old. Yeah. 10. Okay. Today's my wedding anniversary. So that trend is older than how long I've been married. Let's put it that way.
Well, believe it or not, Jake, it was 4 years ago at Inbound that Brian Halligan said on stage, stop hiring writers and start hiring video producers. Still today, people aren't doing it. It was 4 years ago. Sorry, carry on.
No, you do not need to be sorry. It's a good point. So, all right, so let's get into this. So it's a mix, right? And I think data, a lot of companies I see are it's not that they don't have data. Most of these companies, they have data, they're just insights poor, right? That's kind of how I like to think about this, is that, when we think about this kind of union between marketing and sales and current customers, don't forget, my friends, marketing should also be helping with current customers and growth, right? It's not just all net new. And I think marketers, again, are starting to think of this customer journey. more holistically. So let's talk first, Martech consolidation and how it's going to affect orgs. So again, 32%, this number really stood out to me, don't have a strategy for managing their tech stack. And it's, again, there's a lot of different tools. They're somewhat integrated. How do you all manage this? How do you think about this when you see a stat like this, Tyler, of like not having a tech strategy? What do you think that stems from?
I think in a lot of cases, it's not that they're not using tech. It's that it's a little bit of a chaotic world that they're in, and it's very reactive and not proactive. So as opposed to actually spending time with the team holistically and building out a vision for here's where our tech stack needs to go in the next 12 to 24 months, most of us tend to be in this world where it's, okay, what's the next fire we need to put out, or what's the next fix we need to put in to drive alignment, and let's find a tool to solve that. So it tends to be a little bit more opportunistic from what I see out there, which could be good or bad for all of you selling into marketers out there. But I think being really mindful of that dynamic that a lot of people are in.
I love that. Yeah, it's that ability to take a step back and think 3 or 4 steps ahead, because again, there are so many tools, as we mentioned. You might actually be solving the wrong problem, right? You are implementing this where it looks like a Band-Aid, but man, if you instead would have done this and this, there could have been a lot more, insights there. And again, like here's some things, thinking about this, I had a good conversation with Jamie here. Right. So you think about this, right? You think about companies like Terminus, right? You think about demand-based inquiring, Engagio. And again, there's a lot of these, right? We're seeing a lot of kind of consolidation here as well too. Because again, these tools independently, it's like, I only have, 15 arms already. I don't have 30. And so, I thought that was a great, kind of comment there by Jamie around just like, hey, these tools becoming platforms. So maybe I don't, it's not just one platform, I have a few platforms. And so, for you, like, how do you think about the Martech stack and its impact potentially on sales as well? Like when you think about, Martech or companies that are in that, or even your own org, how do you think about the impact of, marketing technology or marketing, platforms, supporting sales, or maybe some stories on some things that you all are doing?
Yeah, well, I think the more advanced marketers out there are really thinking about it as a rev tech stack, right? When you look at the marketing and sales tech stack together, and that most of the things
tech.
Yeah, baby, it's where it's at.
All right, is that like
right?
Is that rev ops, just the tech side of it?
Well, it's as those things are evolving, right? So when you think about this importance of an integrated system of alignment between marketing and sales, I mean, a lot of that is let's just diverge a bit and talk about why that's all happening. And one of the big reasons is because over the last number of years, the way that people research, buy, and expect to engage with companies has changed a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Like most of the way we define marketing and sales still stems from the like Mad Men era of like marketing did advertising, and then somebody would look in the phone book, call up sales, and sales would explain what they do, and they'd either sell it or they wouldn't. And that's just not how things happen anymore. And the buying journey is much more complex than that. People are doing more and more self-service engagement. Even once they've started talking to a sales rep, they still want to do most of their learning self-service. They want that rep to be more of a resource as opposed to somebody they're talking to all the time, right? So those things now become a joint part of the buying journey. And if your marketing tech stack is focused on the top of the funnel and your sales tech stack is focused on the bottom of the funnel, like you're living in the dinosaur age. So these things need to come together to work together seamlessly. And I think if you're selling into marketers, push them on that topic. Like ask them about what is your strategy to ensure marketing and sales technology are aligned. Even if you don't solve that problem, right? That can open up a conversation about how they're thinking about tech and find a spot for you to slide into it.
That man, I was searching for my pen because I wanted to write that down about what you said about sales being a resource. And I think that more and more marketers, again, are thinking about, how does that change how we, what level of intent we need to bring people in at, or, when people actually want to engage, how far down the intent funnel or the decision-making process are they? I was talking to a marketing leader, and it's, today's day and age, if someone is already comparing you, like let's say it's like a G2, right, as another tech stack, right, G2 data, you're not too late, but how do you get in front of them beforehand? And so there's just a lot more, tools or ways to think about things, for people, which kind of leads to this concept of intent data. So other big trend that we heard when we talked to marketers is the intent data. And mixed signals, I think is the politically correct way to put it on, some of the individuals that we, discussed in terms of like what they're purchasing. We talked to some marketing organizations that are stopping using this, or are not using intent data as much as they were before, and others that are doubling down. And so I think for a lot of companies, it's is it the go-to or not? So let's talk about, how do you think about it, Tyler? How do you think about intent? Does it live up to the hype? Do you feel like there's a type of intent, or how you all think about intent, or when you talk to other marketers, what they think around intent?
Yeah, well, I think that's the critical point, is understanding that, and hopefully other marketers understand this, is that not all intent data and intent signals are created equal. And every company has its own different sort of value they'll get from different types of intent data coming in from the market, depending on the market that they serve, depending on the maturity of that audience, and so on. So that you need to be really mindful of, again, as a marketer, really thinking through and working collaboratively with your sales team on like, okay, what are the things that we believe would indicate real interest or intent from a company? And how would you weight that compared to other signals that we see from our first party data, as well as from the third party data that we can pull? And making sure that we understand that there's a variety of different types. And again, if you're selling intent related technology, that's a really important conversation to have with marketers. Don't just try to sell them on the concept of intent. Create a conversation around, well, what types of signals do you think give you a good sense that somebody is either interested in what you're doing or part of your ICP, and make that an iterative discussion. And if by the end of it you all align on these things, they'll buy what you're selling, because you've already basically walked them down that path of them saying, these things are important to me. So don't focus as much on the tech, focus on the kind of data and the outcomes that can come from it.
I love that. Yeah. And again, and also just not looking at it to, that it's the end all be all. Yep. It's a signal. And that's what it's meant to be, is a signal, not a silver bullet. Right. Yeah. So I think for a lot of it, marketers, the jury's still out on, especially the things I think of like third-party intent data, right? Which is a company IP address visited a web page. And just so for all of you, so you understand how third-party data works, let me just break it down for you. Is that every publisher site you go to cookies the shit out of you, okay? And then with that, and they're running a script, okay? You can go to any of these sites and you can click inspect element. It's a right click, inspect element. And you can see whatever script they're running. Well, guess what that script's collecting? It's collecting you as a user, and it's collecting the data on what's on that page. What are the keywords, et cetera. And what publishers are doing is packaging that data based on your IP, because the cookie can tell me where your IP is. And if you know that IBM IPs look like X, and you know that specifically IBM marketing IPs all look like Y, then I can say that marketing department at IBM is looking at content around XYZ. How is that? I think that's pretty good for like my non-technical folks out there.
That was impressive, actually, Jake. I'm going to call you up for a couple of other explanations soon. That was very well done.
That's how it works.
But it's interesting, as you mentioned, like there are other sources. There's other types of intent data, things like G2 you mentioned, where, I know we use G2 and we're able to get insights on companies that are researching either us or our competitors on their review site. And that's a super interesting, and I think, much more valuable intent signal, because it is more specific. We have sort of more control over the filters. And I think they have a greater degree of information about their audience, because they are often registering and things like that. So yeah, that's where we're back to like, there's no single type of intent data necessarily. And the more clarity that we can bring to people of like, this is what it is, this is how it's collected, and this is how you can use it, I think the better, because a lot of marketers are skeptical because it feels like a black box.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we did a survey, we had almost 500 people respond, and, only 19% said it's a game changer, right? Yeah. 30 more people said sounds good, but no value than said it's a game changer. Particularly talking about third-party intent, So again, here's Kevin O'Malley, VP of ABM at Gartner, right? A company that does a lot of this work. Right. So again, you have to combine it. And I think that's what you're getting at as well too. So combine intent data with other first party data that you have. And then you've got the holy grail, right? Combine it with they visited your website and did these things and blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. 100%.
And that can be, like you said, or even G2, some intent data.
Yep.
Interactive content, numero trace. Okay. So interactive content. Well, what is this all about? So let's talk about this. Interactive content, and maybe even how you all are thinking about it is, this concept for a lot of you that, think about the world that we live in. It's like we have we're still kind of using PowerPoints, Google Slides, and PDF. This is all things, my friends, that were invented. Like, how old's PowerPoint's got to be? Gosh, 20 something, 25 years old, maybe at least 90s. Yeah,
I was going to say like 75 years old, but you're probably right about 25.
I think 90s for sure. PowerPoint was around. I think Windows is going to be released number 11. So it's been around for a while. But that's really kind of what a lot of marketers are using still, right? It's still the main delivery mechanism for content or insights is, PowerPoint, Google Slides, PDF. Pretty cool. Actually, I saw shout out a company called Relayto, RELAYTO. And what they do is it automatically ingests your PDFs and makes it interactive. Yeah. And I think it's stuff like that gets me excited. I looked at my whole marketing team. I'm like, every PDF needs to go into this thing. It's like, why do it? Why not do that? So how do you think about this trend around interactive content?
Yeah, so there's two different parts to interactive content that I think about as a marketer. One is the actual content experience that you're delivering to them. So what is the format? How does it engage the audience? Is it something they're going to want to consume, right? Based on how they consume things today. And so you start to think about things like, going beyond just, ebooks and the written word, things like more interactive, surveys or calculators, or right into things like video and audio and other formats. So that's one side, is the actual content experience for the viewer or the engager. And then the other side is the fact that by definition, interactive content does tend to give you a lot richer data on the back end about the interactivity of your audience. And so no longer, right, to your point of a tool like Relayto, no longer it's just, hey, I know that this person downloaded this PDF, right?
They clicked on this one thing and then they looked.
And the marketers are like, this is the hottest lead ever.
Oh my God. They looked at the pricing page, Tyler. They're so hot. They spent 25 seconds on slide 7.
Right.
God forbid they went up and went to the bathroom. Right.
So this is where some of the promise of interactive content for me as a marketer, comes down to both our ability then to track actual interactivity with it. So, this person just downloaded or open it, or did they actually click through different parts? Did they make it all the way to the end? As well as things like being able to track their active engagement in that content. So, which is why I love things like video, where you can say, hey, not only did they click play, but they also watched for, a minute and 40 seconds, and they made it all the way to the end. Because as a marketer, I can now use that much richer data coming from this more interactive content to better qualify people these are actual real intent signals, right? These are first party intent signals now, where I know somebody's spending time in this, they're completing this content, and then I can use that as a lead qualifier and push better leads to my sales team faster. So those are the two sides of it that are really, really interesting for this.
I love that. And we actually had a question. I apologize. I skipped over this. It's from anonymous attendee. So I don't know who I'm apologizing to because you're anonymous. It said, this is going back to intent real quick, which is do you think intent is getting mixed reviews because of how people are using it, or because it's not where it should be as a resource?
So from my perspective, it could absolutely be a bit of both. I think for some, it's probably both, for different people. I think for some people, the type of intent data they're getting just isn't living up to the hype. And that might mean, again, they're in a market where the kind of intent data they're receiving isn't that effective. But what I've also found is, people will have a bad habit of saying, I got this list of leads who all read about, something related to us on these websites. I'm going to send that list over to sales, and then sales goes all their outreach. And you go leads. Hot. It might as well be booth leads. They're all hot. And so the problem then is their sales team comes back and say, I got nothing out of these, thanks, but no thanks. And then the marketer says, this stuff's not ready. But the reality is, again, they're not educated enough as a marketer to know you shouldn't just be sending those leads to your sales teams. Back to like how you use it, that should be one source of data to help bubble up people who are already showing other forms of intent.
Yeah. I think that's great. And John actually, as we kind of move into or kind of wrap up interactive, he asked about AI, like, is this a great place for AI? Is this interactive content? And here's what I think, because it actually goes back to the question, which is around, is it the resource or is it the people know how to use it?
Yeah.
The tech isn't really there either. Meaning a lot of what we confuse machine learning and AI with simple decision trees, which are like if-then statements.
Right.
And I think on the tech side, most of these tools are really basic, meaning like they're not really like a lot of them, there's not enough data to really create. Sometimes in B2B, we struggle with data, right? Because in B2C, you can crank enough, points through a system to then really start to make the model like, money. But if you're not passing enough data through a system, AI is kind of worthless. Like it's not going to be able to like really learn and kind of like drive insights. It's going to like kind of point you in some right directions, which is a part of it. So for me, I think the answer, John, for you is I think, yes, I think machine learning and AI can be a big driver in terms of like the right content. Where did people go? Assuming that you have enough data to push through it. And I think a lot of these tools are still really early and the tech's mediocre. And if they're telling you different, I think they're full of shit because, they just raised a Series A or Series B. There's no chance that your 10 engineers have built something that, takes hundreds or thousands. So I just think we're early was my take.
Yeah.
So, all right, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. It's one at the top's really cool. Vidyard, if you want to know. Brandcast is pretty cool. I've been checking them out. Rock Content, they're actually a client of ours. They've got some really cool. There's a lot of different things that are happening. Another one that's not on here is Mural. Mural is this really cool kind of collaboration tool that we've been using internally as well. So just some things to think about, everyone. All right, hybrid events. Let's talk events, the future of event marketing. So again, the concept of I've got people live, I've got people virtual. How are you guys thinking about this? So when I talk to a lot of marketers around this, and everyone's like, we're excited to get back face to face. Well, that's great that you're excited because a lot of other people aren't excited. But how are you all thinking about events, in terms of this kind of idea of a hybrid, event?
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's be clear on one really important point, and that's the use of virtual events will never go away now. Like virtual events are a part of our lives, period, right? No matter how much in-person events come back, because we've all been forced to realize over the last couple of years, just like with Zoom, right? We've all been forced over the last couple of years, whether we liked it or not, to recognize that, hey, we can actually do this with actually surprisingly little effort. Like I can run a virtual event with one person on my team using one piece of tech now. That wasn't a reality a few years ago. And if it was, I had to pay like $100,000 and have On24's tech support on 3 different phones, right? But like nowadays, the technology has matured to a point where it has become very inexpensive to run virtual events, basic webinars, of course. And so the tech is there to enable us to do this. And there's like literally no reason not to do virtual events, given those barriers are gone. And a lot of people are going to prefer that. Does it mean we won't do in-person events? Of course not. In-person events will absolutely happen. A lot of people absolutely love, and there are different experiences you can create in person. I think the jury is still out on the hybrid event world for most of us in the real world. I think for the big industry conferences, like the Web 2.0s and the SaaSters and these things.
Did SaaStr do virtual? Did SaaStr do a virtual option?
I believe they did. Okay. My understanding is they did. The physical event itself was super interesting because it was basically like an outdoor tech fest. Like all the booths were outdoor. It was kind of like a market. And they were in like tents and such, and they had outdoor speaking areas. So I think this, we're going to figure all this out. But yeah, I think for most companies who are running like customer events and user groups and things like that, they're going to do virtual events throughout the year, and they're probably going to do 1 or 2 in-person events. They may do small, in-field events. I think the jury is still out on whether the real hybrid idea is something most companies will embrace, or if it will just be a big industry event kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's just like, again, and I think I'll take a look if SaaStr did. I don't know if they did it like, full blown, because I think that the issue is, you want to push the attendance, right? And that's kind of like how we're so hardwired, right? You're going to invest in this big event, push attendance. And I think, event marketers and marketers in general, I think are just struggling with the concept of how do you do both? How do you maximize in-person attendance and maximize digital attendance, virtual? And so I think that to me is a big trend that I see that I think a lot of marketers are going to have to deal with, which is, and again, Kevin talked about this as well too, is, this idea of like the balance, because again, you want to drive as many people as possible, but you also want to drive to online. And so I think that to me, I think is the big trend. So if you're a company and you can solve this for people about how to optimize, virtual events and in person, I think there's a big market this year for you.
Yep.
So last but certainly not least, and then we'll save some room for some Q&A here, and we'll probably wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so. So appreciate everyone who's joined us talking through this. I think we've had some really amazing dialogue. We'll be emailing this out to everyone. If you're on LinkedIn, just shoot like a quick thumbs up in the comments or something, and Ricky on our team will DM you the link for this as well too, so everyone can go back and share with their marketing team, share with their sales team. Account-based marketing. Oh, Tyler, let's talk about it. So if you think about this state of ABM, right? Many marketers and sales orgs are moving to this account-based plan. This comes account-based, just for people, if you're not familiar, is kind of, I feel like it's a quasi silly concept, because it's what people were doing 15 years ago, which is like, at a company, you're going to reach out to multiple levels with different messages and different ways to engage them. Wow. Holy crap, Tyler. Wow. Oh my God. That's so novel. My friends, it's just called good sales. So anyway, that's the last time I'll talk about RevOps is my new thing like that. Like, wait, what we need? Our ops group. We had to create ops groups for each group. Now we need an ops groups for our ops groups. It's like, anyway, ABM, my friends, is the concept of we're going to do smart outreach to organizations. We're going to circle accounts, circle target people within those accounts to try to create better engagement, whether it's in the top of the funnel or middle funnel. Usually that's it. Not enough people probably do it with current customers as they should. How have you seen this strategy evolve, Tyler? Like, have you seen ABM marketing evolve? Because let me tell you that here's what I think is really interesting about this number. Is we did a survey. We had over 1,000 leaders and sales and reps respond. We did this last week. I think I did it last Friday. 86% said they're missing their outbound targets. And this is, and so that means, most of them are deploying ABM strategies. Why is it, what are your thoughts on ABM and like where we're at now and where you see it going?
Yeah. I'll sing now because I promised everybody I would. So it's, you're exactly right here. Every marketer is doing ABM. Okay. It is a hot thing. So here's what's happened from my perspective is that you're exactly right that this is the way sales teams have been selling since the dawn of sales. Like, they don't go after, John over there did this thing. I mean, no, it's like they have accounts that they know are their ICP, and they're going after those accounts and finding the right people. But in the marketing world, for those of you who don't come from the marketing side, the tech never really existed until the last few years for us to be able to actually start to track data around at an account level of what people were doing and how they were engaging, to be able to do account level advertising, right? Like, that concept didn't even exist 5 years ago. But the tech has evolved to enable us to do that. The marketing automation platforms we've been using never even had an account object.
Oh, right.
Blow our minds again, right? You're like, what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Tyler. Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, HubSpot never had an account object in them on the marketing side? No, they didn't. It was always leads. And so it was just the way that we were conditioned to think about the process. But over the last number of years, that's evolved, thankfully. And so the tech has caught up now that is enabling marketing teams to run more scalable programs to target people at individual key accounts, to track the progression at an account level instead of a lead level, and to actually trigger activities, again, based on things across an account rather than by a single lead. So that's been the big driver for it, is just the tech is now there that allows us to do the things we probably should have always been doing. We just never could.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. Yeah, it's like the fact that some of this, it's just, or is this very manual, right? It was like a spreadsheet with like, someone's key accounts and sitting down with marketing. And
the way most teams have been doing ABM traditionally has been what we just call field marketing, right? Like field marketing is usually that team that focuses on a territory. They work with the sales team for that territory. They run targeted events for key accounts in that territory, and they help the sales team create account plans. So field marketing was kind of the original of it. And it was always like geo-based because that's how we could align with sales. But now that the tech is there, we can go, wait a minute, we can do this cross geo, kind of cross sales team, and automate a lot of the things behind it. So it's really exciting. And I think for a lot of marketers, that's why they're getting behind it, because they're realizing like, holy crap, this is how I should have always been doing things. It makes sense. It helps me align with the sales team. And finally, I have the tools to let me do it. There's still, a long way to go for them to be perfect, but it is a huge opportunity for people selling into marketing.
Yeah, I love that. And again, like the concept of the right ABM means that, you have to focus on the customer. And this is some of the feedback that we got that, it's interesting. I literally have seen ABM plays where the messaging is still like relatively similar based on the persona. Right. And, or I'm sorry, not, it's similar, not based on the persona. It doesn't really take into account the things that, a SVP at the company that you're targeting might care about versus a director versus a, frontline user. And so, when you think about that, like, how do you do you talked about this account planning, like, what are some ways to do ABM right? Or what do you think goes into it?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a little bit different for different organizations, depending on, the size of deals that they're doing and, whether it's like really big, large enterprise versus they're doing mid-market deals and others. But I think, a huge key to it, back to the alignment conversation earlier, is, if you're not developing your ABM strategy in partnership with your sales team from day one, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's where a lot of these things where the sales team are the ones that actually help the marketers understand, oh, no, wait a minute, like this message isn't really going to land with these people. And you're like, what are you talking about? I spent 8 hours writing that amazing subject line. And they're like, yeah, have you ever actually talked to a buyer? Well, no, but I look at my open rates. And they're like, no. So these are the kinds of people I'm talking to on a daily basis. I think if we message here, we do this. If we're going to send them a gift, don't make it a coffee mug, make it something like this. And I think that's such an important part that a lot of people do miss, is the marketing team develops the ABM strategy and then shares it with sales and said, you're welcome, sales team. And it's like, no, let's build this together, figure out what those triggers are, figure out who we're reaching out to, where we need to personalize. And then you get it right with a small group of accounts first. And then once you figure it out, then you can scale it, and you can scale it really easily if you have the right tech.
Yeah, I saw a post from a friend of mine, Chris Walker, I think it was last week. And he said, marketers need to know the customer better than anyone in the company.
Yeah.
And man, do I feel like that is not what's happening.
No.
Do I feel like so many marketers, I call it playing from the sidelines, it's almost like like a football, like talking head who never played football, right? It's like, yeah, I get the game basically, or I get, or never was a coach or anything, versus someone who has played and understands. And I think marketing departments, again, when you think about ABM, it's going to be very difficult for you to be successful if you aren't on the field talking to customers, understanding what the new motivations are, and something I'm challenging even our own internal marketing team on. And so we got a really good question. This is a great question from anonymous attendee, very cryptic. How much time do you allocate? Like, how long is the life cycle for a typical ABM campaign? You know what? No one's ever asked that question before. I actually think it's a really smart question. Like, what do you think, Tyler? Like, I don't know if I have a POV on this necessarily, but what do you think's a good like length of time? I mean, obviously it's like, it depends on the account. So I'm going to tee it up for you. So I'm going to make the question easier. Let's say it's a company that's targeting, let's call it like upper mid-market. So 500 to 1,000 employees.
Yeah.
And, they sell a product that's, call it $50,000, right? 50,000 ARR. for a campaign like that, for that type of company, how long would you see a account-based strategy playing out?
Yeah, it's a great question. You're right. My gut says, like when you're targeting an account, they're part of your list and they're going through this campaign. If you're not seeing any progression, then like I'd say 2 to 3 months is probably your max timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I think 30 days isn't enough to see something, but once you get to that 60 to 90 days, if you aren't seeing any engagement or progression, then the smart way to do it is you've got then some of these more automated programs that you can keep your brand warm with them and make sure they go into sort of a more automated tier of things, while the more manual, targeted, more costly activities are focused on ones that are showing signs of life. And so that's kind of the timeline I would have in mind.
Yeah.
And then again, if somebody within that 3-month period is showing signs of life, are showing engagement, then they get extended until you sort of see that not happening.
Yeah, I think that's a good, I think that's a great, that was my gut was telling me. I was like, yeah, probably what, 2 to 3 months, I think is what I was. The other thing that I'll challenge people on is that, and again, from running big sales teams, I think one of the myths that I would dispel for people is the individuals are the ones not responding, not the company. And so many times I see what people give up on a company because people aren't responding, as opposed to like, well, maybe we were running ABM to the left and we need to start running it to the right, and I think too many people disqualify companies because a group of people aren't responding. Right. And so I think a lot of organizations, so it's like, I agree. I think it's like, yeah, that like 2 to 3 months, but I don't know if that means, because again, I think this is actually part of maybe one of the issues, Tyler, with ABM is it's not a campaign.
Right.
It shouldn't be thought of as a campaign. It's the way that you operate. Yeah. And it's an operating rhythm. And I think that that's actually an issue that a lot of marketers have and sales teams is they view the ABM stuff as very campaigny. And then they've got, the ground and pound over here. That's, direct. So I just want to challenge the thinking for people of like, don't think of ABM as campaigns. It's a new way of doing business. And it's not, because you will never be successful with ABM. It will always feel like a slog if you're just like campaign, as opposed to, and don't give up on a company necessarily because the strategy wasn't working. Think about maybe giving up on a group of people that you were targeting. So that's my piece there. So let's see if we've got any kind of final questions here. If anyone's got any final questions here. John is going to get the gold star for today. He took my advice very, very to heart about being selfish and asking a lot of great questions and putting, calls out account-based customer success, right? Well, like, what's this thing? Account-based everything. Everything's account-based. Yeah, John, I actually think that the most undervalued group of people in a company are the current customers. Meaning, even though we know it's where growth comes from and we're leaving so much money on the table, we love new. We love new. The reality is, and I talk to a lot of early stage tech companies, Series B, let's say like, Series B, Series C, and, they've got these really aggressive outbound goals, super aggressive. And then I look at their like churn or like their net negative churn, and it's like 10% account growth. I'm like, you're insane. Like at your stage, account growth you should be targeting 130, 140, and then you don't have to have these absolutely insane, impossible outbound metrics. And so John, I think it's a really good call out that you can actually, and this is something I literally just had this conversation for the first time yesterday with a gentleman. Why not use intent data on to reduce customer churn? Yep. Are my customers looking at keywords that are like XYZ, or, are they shopping on G2? Yeah. That's going to tell me this person might churn. So how do you think about whether it's account-based marketing or marketing's role? And Tyler, maybe you guys don't do it, but how do you all think about that at Vidyard?
No, we 100% do. And we use both first party and third party signals. So you're absolutely right. Part of the way we use, like G2 is just one example again that I'm familiar with. We track exactly that. We'll get notifications when one of our existing customers is reviewing either our profile or a competitor's profile on G2. So that's a clear signal that they may be shopping around. That goes into our customer success team, is routed to the right manager, and they take that in as an input. There are a couple of other examples, but we also then do a lot from our first party signals. We use, Gainsight as a customer success platform. As a SaaS technology, we've integrated, we've actually plugged data from our own platform into Gainsight to make sure that our CSMs know very clearly on a monthly basis, like how many times is that person logging in to Vidyard? How many videos did they upload this month?
Yeah.
Are they hitting the success metrics? So there's a ton of data in there that ends up helping our customer success team focus on the accounts that either are showing churn risk or the greatest potential for upsell, cross-sell. So it's absolutely super important.
I love that. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, again, it's always the new, right? We want the shiny new, but it's, the opportunity with your current is just massive. So Tyler, any parting thoughts before we wrap up? Anything that, is top of mind for you?
I just think back to, the core of the topic here for all of you in sales who are selling to marketers. Hopefully you've gathered from this that marketing is really complex. Like, it's not a single function anymore. It's not like one goal. It is a very complicated world for us marketers. And there's a lot of different tech that we can use to solve a lot of different outcomes. And please, please, please focus, be curious. Be curious as a seller when you're working with marketers. Ask more questions than you think are the minimum number you need to. Like, really understand them, dig into it, understand what they're using, where their pains are, how their team is structured, who's responsible for what. Like, all of those things are really, really important when you're selling into marketers. And the more you understand them, the way their org is set up, what their current goals are, what their tech stack looks like, the better chance you're going to have of finding a spot where your piece is going to fit. Because it won't always be with the person you thought it was going to be. You may sell demand gen tech that the product marketing team realizes they could really use for a new product launch. So ask questions, be curious to find out where your opportunities might sit.
Such a great way to wrap it up. And, look, obviously, referenced what we put together today, right? We're telling you, this is what marketers are saying. We are actively in the market. You want intent data. This is intent data. We're giving you the intent data that at a persona level, to say marketers are looking for, these are the trends of the things we're looking for. So I hope this helps a lot of you get out there, marketers to market more effectively and sellers to sell more effectively. So Tyler, appreciate you. Obviously appreciate the team at Vidyard as well too. If your organization is trying to integrate Vidyard more effectively, you know who to call. That's us. So, and if you're not using Vidyard, you call him and then we'll work together. So, all right. Well, thanks again, Tyler. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Tyler, I appreciate you joining me.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the offer.
Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your week. We'll talk to you later.